On a recent Wednesday evening, the champagne bubbles tickled my nose as I stood frozen in my sister's living room. Jessica's words echoed in my ears, too shocking to process. Mom and Dad have officially transferred the house to me. The crystal flute slipped from my fingers. Time seemed to slow as it fell toward the hardwood floor, the same one Jessica had insisted on refinishing just last month. The crash shattered the silence, every head turning toward me as champagne spread across the floor like spilled secrets. Jessica, one hand resting protectively over her barely visible pregnancy, looked at me with a blend of irritation and triumph. Her boyfriend gave a small approving nod beside her, while my parents suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. I felt the color drain from my face, my lips parting but no sound coming out. The room tilted slightly as I tried to comprehend what Jessica had just declared so proudly, as if robbing me of my future was something to celebrate. "What do you mean, transferred?" My voice came out thin, almost unrecognizable. "The deed is in my name. The deed is in my name." Jessica laughed, sharp, dismissive, cutting. "Oh, that was just temporary. For the paperwork." Mom stepped forward, her hands fluttering nervously. "You're still young, Emmy. You'll buy another one someday. Jessica needs stability for the baby." My eyes locked on the mantel where the framed mortgage documents stood in plain view. My mortgage. The papers I had signed after draining my savings to save my family from foreclosure, a foreclosure that now felt suspiciously well-timed. For 11 years, I had worked double shifts in Denver General's ICU. 11 years of missed holidays, birthdays celebrated late, and relationships that crumbled under the weight of my dedication to saving both lives and dollars. I kept a small notebook in my scrubs pocket, recording every penny toward my dream home. Last April, I finally reached $182,000 in savings, enough for a solid down payment in a neighborhood I loved. I'd even booked house viewings for that very weekend. Then came the desperate call. "Emmy, we're losing the house," Mom had sobbed into the phone. "Only 30 days left before foreclosure." I canceled every viewing, withdrew my entire savings, and put down $182,000 on a $370,000 house, taking on a $188,000 mortgage in my name alone. The closing attorney had smiled as he slid the papers across the desk. "Congratulations, Ms. Sullivan. You're a homeowner." And now Jessica stood in that home, claiming it as hers. "That's my house." My voice finally found strength rising from somewhere deep inside me. "I paid for it. I signed the papers." Father cleared his throat, stepping forward with that familiar look of condescension he reserved for when I was being difficult. "Now, Emily, let's not make a scene. Family helps family." Jessica stroked her stomach again, the gesture almost theatrical. "My baby needs a stable home. You have your apartment." "The apartment I kept," I said, "because you insisted you needed time to move your things from the old house. The apartment that was supposed to be temporary until I found renters for my house. How is this even possible?" I demanded, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. "The deed was in my name." Mother clinked her glass loudly, forcing a too bright smile. "Come on, everyone. Let's toast to Jessica's new beginning." Just like that, the focus shifted. Glasses were raised, congratulations flowed freely. I stood alone, champagne soaking into my shoes, my future stolen in a single announcement. I slipped into a corner, my hands trembling as I pulled out my phone. I texted my cousin Sarah, the only relative who had ever taken my side. "Something's very wrong. Need help." Her reply came almost instantly. "Meet me tomorrow. Bring whatever paperwork you have." Across the room, Jessica accepted congratulations like a queen holding court. Mom refilled glasses, and Dad launched into his favorite story about Jessica's first word being home. No one noticed me standing alone, watching them celebrate what they'd taken: my savings, my sacrifice, my future. But as I watched them laugh, something inside me shifted. A quiet resolve began to take shape, hardening with every passing second. They thought this was over. They thought I'd accept this betrayal the way I'd swallowed every slight and disappointment before. They were wrong. My heart pounded against my ribs as I slipped back into the house through the side entrance. The laughter from the living room floated down the hallway like poisonous gas. I checked my watch 11 minutes until someone realized I was missing. The door to Mom's home office creaked softly as I pushed it open. Moonlight spilled through the Venetian blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the antique desk where family decisions had always been made without me. I froze. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. A pause. Then they continued past, fading toward the kitchen. Breath held, I slid behind the desk and pulled the chain on the small lamp. Think like a nurse? I whispered to myself. When patients hide symptoms, we look for physical evidence. Mom had always been meticulous about paperwork, a trait I inherited. Every mortgage statement, every bill lived in labeled folders in the oak filing cabinet. The top drawer slid open with a familiar rasp. My fingers traced across neatly labeled tabs, utilities, insurance, and medical, until I reached real estate. I pulled out the thick folder, nearly dropping it when voices grew louder in the hallway. "Emmy's probably just in the bathroom," Jessica said, her voice carrying. "You know how she gets when she's upset. Always hiding away instead of talking like an adult." I sank to the floor behind the desk, the folder clutched against my chest. When the voices passed, I spread the documents across the carpet. Original purchase documents for the family home from 20 years ago. Recent mortgage statements showing payments, my payments. And then I saw it, the warranty deed, with my name printed clearly as the owner. Beside the warranty deed, I found a quitclaim deed bearing what appeared to be my signature, transferring ownership to Jessica Sullivan. Except it wasn't my signature. The looping E was wrong, missing its distinctive tail. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped my phone as I photographed each document, the flash briefly blinding me in the dim light. Tucked behind the deeds, a letter on an attorney's letterhead caught my eye. I scanned the contents, forcing my breathing to remain steady, my nurse's training kicking in even as anger pulsed hot behind my temples. The letter read clearly, "Advise against proceeding with this course of action. Potential fraud implications. Forgery carries significant penalties." Footsteps echoed again in the hallway. I hurriedly replaced everything, sliding the folder back into its exact spot. The side door offered a silent escape just as the office light flicked on behind me. "Do you need the rest of that coffee?" Sarah asked the next morning, nodding toward my untouched mug. We sat in the corner booth of a quiet diner far from other customers. Michael, her attorney friend, studied the photos on my phone. His expression darkened with every swipe. "This is textbook fraud," he said, finally looking up. "The signature isn't even close. Did you sign anything granting them permission to transfer the house?" "Nothing," I said. "I only signed the original mortgage papers. That's all." Sarah excused herself to make a call, flashing her county employee ID badge. "I've worked with property records for years," she said. "They'll help us." While she was gone, Michael walked me through the legal reality, each word tightening the knot in my stomach. "A quitclaim deed transfers whatever ownership interest you have in the property to someone else," he explained. "But this signature?" He shook his head slowly. Sarah returned moments later, her face flushed. "The foreclosure notice on your parents' house. It never existed," she said breathlessly. "I checked every record for the past 3 years." "What?" The word left my lips as barely a whisper. Michael's expression hardened. "They fabricated the entire story to get access to your savings." The truth crashed over me like a cold wave, my mother's handwriting on the sticky notes attached to the forged documents, Jessica's name on every transfer page, my father's signature quietly anchoring it all as a witness to the fraud. "Your mother orchestrated this," Michael said softly. "Jessica benefits, but the planning, the details, those are all your mother's." Sarah reached across the table, her eyes steady. "Stay with me. My guest room's yours for as long as you need." Michael slid his phone aside. "I'll file emergency papers today to freeze the property," he said, waving off my attempt to pay. Don't worry about fees. We'll get your costs covered when we win. I finally managed to speak, a quiet determination setting in. I have to save papers. This sentence seems incomplete and was likely misheard or mistyped in the original. Assuming the intent was to state a clear action, I will correct it to a stronger, clearer resolution. I want to file a police report. I have the papers to prove it. Back at the hospital that afternoon, my colleague Deborah appeared at my locker with a casserole dish. "The ICU team is behind you, Emmy," she said simply. My phone buzzed with a message from my father. "Your mother is having chest pains from the stress. Is this what you want?" Before I could process this, a text from Jessica appeared. "If you fight this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of sister you really are." The final blow came that evening, a certified letter from my family's attorney threatening a countersuit for harassment and false claims. In Sarah's guest room, I stared at the ceiling as moonlight painted unfamiliar shadows. "I still love them," I whispered to Sarah when she checked on me. "How could they do this?" She sat beside me on the bed. "Because they thought they could get away with it." Sleep evaded me through the night. I traced the cracks in the ceiling with my eyes, my mind replaying every family dinner, every holiday, searching for the signs I'd missed. When morning light finally streamed through the window, a strange clarity settled over me like the calm that follows a code blue. I sat up and pulled my nurse's notebook from my bag. On a clean page, I wrote 3 words: evidence, strategy, justice. They don't get to take my future, I told my reflection in Sarah's guest bathroom mirror. Not without a fight. The following week, the hospital lobby buzzed with the usual Monday morning chaos: visitors clutching coffee cups, staff hurrying between departments, the squeak of wheelchairs on polished floors. I was reviewing a patient chart at the nurse's station when Deborah tapped my shoulder, her face tight with concern. "Emmy," she whispered. "Your mother and sister are in the lobby." Security called up. My stomach dropped. After 3 days of unanswered calls and ignored texts, they'd brought the confrontation to my workplace. I handed the chart to Deborah, smoothed my scrubs, and steadied myself. The elevator doors opened to reveal my mother theatrically dabbing her eyes with a tissue, while Jessica stood beside her, one hand on her barely visible pregnancy, the other clutching an oversized purse. A few visitors had already turned to watch. "Emmy," Mother wailed as soon as she saw me, her voice echoing through the entire lobby. "Why are you tearing our family apart? After all we've done for you." I approached them with measured steps, acutely aware of every curious gaze tracking my movements. "This isn't the place for this conversation," I said evenly. Jessica stepped forward, both hands now cradling her stomach. Her face twisted into a mask of distress. The stress could harm the baby Emily. "Is that what you want?" "Please lower your voices," I said firmly, noticing Carl from security hovering nearby. "This is a hospital. We wouldn't have to come here if you'd just answer our calls." Mother snapped, her tearful act slipping for a brief moment. "Your father hasn't slept in days worrying about what you're doing to this family." A group of nurses from pediatrics slowed their pace to observe the unfolding drama. 2 of my ICU colleagues stood near the coffee cart watching with concern. This was exactly what they wanted: to humiliate me, to make me cave under public pressure. "I've asked you to leave," I said firmly. "Not until you drop this ridiculous legal nonsense," Jessica spat back. Mother hissed, grabbing my wrist. Her fingers dug into my skin. Carl stepped forward. "Ladies, I need to ask you to leave. We can't have disruptions in patient areas." "My daughter works here," Mother protested, her voice rising again. "I have every right. You have the right to schedule a visit during her break time." Carl interrupted, "But causing a disturbance is against hospital policy." Jessica burst into fresh tears. "She's trying to steal my baby's home after everything we've done for her." The absurdity of her claim almost made me laugh. Carl guided them firmly toward the exit as Mother continued her performance loud enough for everyone to hear. Your sister needs that house, Emily. The baby needs stability. How could you be so selfish? The doors closed behind them, but the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the lobby. I stood frozen until Nurse Wilson touched my elbow. Dr. Wilson wants to see you, she said quietly. I'll cover your patients. The walk to the hospital director's office felt endless. Colleagues averted their eyes or offered sympathetic smiles as I passed. My career had always been separate from my family drama until now. Dr. Wilson's assistant waved me directly into his office. I braced for the professional repercussions of having my family's spectacle disrupt hospital operations. Emily, Dr. Wilson said, rising from behind his desk. His weathered face showed concern rather than displeasure. Sit down, please. I perched on the edge of a chair, hands clasped tightly in my lap. I apologize for the disturbance, sir. It won't happen again. That's not why I called you in. He sat across from me, leaning forward. Your family has been calling staff members, including me, with some concerning accusations. My face burned with humiliation. Of course they wouldn't stop at a public scene. They've called every department head, he continued. What can we do to support you? The question caught me completely off guard. Support. Me, Emily. You've been with us for 11 years. You're one of our most dedicated nurses. His voice softened. Family should protect, not exploit. You're family to us here. Something inside me broke. After days of forcing composure, of pretending everything was fine, while my own family dismantled my life piece by piece, the unexpected kindness shattered my defenses. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. I'm sorry, I whispered, fumbling for a tissue. Don't apologize. Dr. Wilson slid a box toward me. Take some time. Tell me what's happening. The story poured out of me, the years of saving the false foreclosure, the forged documents, the betrayal. Dr. Wilson listened without a word, his expression darkening with every detail. Take emergency leave, he said when I finished. With pay. I'll arrange coverage for your shifts. I can't ask for special treatment. You didn't ask, I offered. His tone left no room for argument. Take care of yourself first, Emily. The ICU will still be here when you're ready to come back. As I walked back to the nurses' station, I felt lighter somehow. My family had tried to isolate me, to make me question my own worth, but they'd underestimated me. For every person they'd tried to turn against me, others had quietly rallied to my side. Deborah met me halfway down the corridor. Your cousin Sarah called. She's organizing all the documents for court. Thank you. And Michael left a message. He's filing something called Ellis Pendens and a temporary restraining order today. She handed me a stack of message slips. Also, we worked out a schedule. Someone from the unit will stay with you whenever you need company. My throat tightened. You didn't have to do that. We protect our own, Deborah said simply. The apartment hallway was unusually quiet when I returned home that evening. I was sorting through the mail when I saw them, my parents sitting on the floor outside my door like forgotten packages. Father stood first, his face drawn and weary. Your mother hasn't slept in days because of this. Mother rose more slowly, her eyes red-rimmed but still calculating. After everything we sacrificed for you. I unlocked the door without responding, but Father stepped forward, blocking the entrance. Emmy, please just talk to us. Something in his voice almost sounded genuine, but I'd heard too many practiced apologies to trust it. I met his gaze steadily. I have the original documents, I said, my voice calm and firm. I know there was no foreclosure. The hallway fell into a heavy silence. Mother's face hardened, but Father's showed the first flicker of shame I'd ever seen. His shoulders sagged under the truth. Jessica said it was just paperwork, he murmured, that you'd understand it was for family. Don't you dare blame this on Jessica, Mother snapped, though her voice faltered. I'll see you both in court, I said, stepping around them into my apartment. The door closed with a soft click, quieter than a slam but far more final. My phone vibrated with a text from Michael. Good news, court approved the temporary restraining order. They can't sell or transfer the property now. A second message followed. Sarah found something interesting. The notary who stamped the fake documents is Jessica's friend from college. I sank onto my couch, absorbing this new information. With each piece of evidence, their scheme unraveled further. Criminal charges were now a real possibility. I texted back, "I won't pursue criminal charges if they cooperate. Not out of mercy, out of efficiency. I don't want a protracted battle. I just want my house back and my family out of my life." Later that evening, I sat in Sarah's garden, a box of old family photos open beside me. Summers at the lake, Christmas mornings, my graduation. Memories of a family that existed before greed corroded everything. Sarah found me there as twilight softened the edges of her flower beds. "You're allowed to grieve the family you thought you had," she said, sitting beside me. "I kept trying to earn their love by giving more," I whispered, tracing my finger over a fading image of us all smiling at the camera. "But it was never enough. It never would have been." She covered my hand with hers. "Some people are bottomless pits, Em." With a deep breath, I closed the lid on the box of photos, sealing away the family that never truly existed. Tomorrow, Michael and I would meet to discuss our legal strategy to go to court. He had mentioned the possibility of a civil theft claim with treble damages over $60,000 and additional penalties. "I don't want their money," I told Sarah as we headed inside. "I just want my house back." "Michael says they've hired Blackwell," she warned. "He's aggressive." "So am I," I replied, "when protecting what's mine." My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Emily." The voice was hesitant, familiar. "It's Tom, Jessica's boyfriend." Sarah raised her eyebrows as I put the call on speaker. "I didn't know what they did to you," Tom continued. "I want to help." "Why would you help me?" "I was there when your mother and Jessica discussed the forged documents." His voice trembled slightly. "This isn't right. I can't be part of this." "You'd testify to that?" I asked. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'll tell the court everything I saw and heard." After ending the call, I turned to Sarah, a strange calm settling over me for the first time in weeks. Everything just changed. That Thursday, the courthouse loomed, marble columns, echoing halls, and the faint scent of polished stone, but I stood straight-backed beside Michael as we entered courtroom 3. My ICU badge was still pinned to my blouse, a small reminder of who I was beyond this nightmare. "Ready," Michael's voice was steady, his briefcase holding weeks of meticulous preparation. I nodded, scanning the room. Jessica sat in the front row, her pregnancy now unmistakable beneath a tight dress. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief in practiced misery, while father stared straight ahead, unreadable. Judge Harriman peered over her reading glasses as we approached. Sullivan versus Sullivan property dispute involving alleged document falsification. Michael moved with calm precision, arranging the exhibits before the judge, like a surgeon laying out instruments. "Your Honor, we have evidence of signature forgery, notary fraud, and deliberate misrepresentation." The judge's eyebrows rose as she examined the documents. Her finger traced the two signatures, mine from the mortgage papers, and the clumsy imitation scrawled on the quitclaim deed. "And you are the sole mortgage holder?" she asked, looking up at me. "Yes, Your Honor. I provided the entire down payment of $182,000 and signed for the remaining mortgage myself." Jessica's attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, rose smoothly. "Ms. Sullivan clearly intended this as a gift to her family. Her sister is expecting a child." "Mr. Blackwell," Judge Harriman cut in her tone, "sharp pregnancy doesn't entitle anyone to commit fraud." Color crept up his neck. My client was not aware of any irregular documentation. I kept my expression composed, though my pulse hammered in my throat. When Jessica's attorney tried to imply I was punishing an innocent unborn child, I felt Michael tense beside me, but I didn't flinch. "Your Honor," I said quietly, "this isn't about my niece or nephew. This is about a deliberate scheme to take my life savings." 2 hours later, we stepped out of the courtroom with an extended restraining order and a trial date, the first real victory. That evening, Sarah called. "Emily, check Facebook. Your mother's gone public." Mother's post appeared on my screen, a tearful plea about her selfish daughter taking a pregnant sister's home, complete with an old family photo where she cradled young Jessica while I stood slightly apart. "She's always known exactly how to play the victim," I whispered. By morning, the local paper ran a photo of Jessica cradling her belly, claiming I had become unrecognizable since my promotion at the hospital. Father cornered 3 of my colleagues in the hospital parking lot, asking them to talk some sense into Emmy. But something unexpected happened. Tom, Jessica's boyfriend, commented on Mother's post. "The truth isn't being told here." Within hours, Sarah shared the county records proving no foreclosure had ever existed on my parents' original home. Dr. Wilson followed with his own post, praising my years of dedicated service, especially the holidays I'd volunteered to work, so others could spend time with their families. "The community is listening," Michael said during our strategy call. "People recognize integrity when they see it." The hospital issued a public statement standing firmly behind me. The neighborhood association where the disputed house was located reached out as well, expressing concern about property values if fraudulent transfers were allowed to stand. At the second hearing the following Monday, the bank officer testified that I had been the sole applicant for the mortgage. Jessica's friend broke down on the stand, admitting she had stamped the notary seal without witnessing any signatures. During a recess, Father approached me in the hallway, his shoulders slumped. "Your mother went too far," he said quietly. "I should have stopped this." For the first time, I saw the truth, not malice, but cowardice, the weakness that had allowed everything to happen. In the courthouse lobby, Jessica and Tom argued in harsh whispers. When she grabbed his arm, he yanked it free and walked away toward the exit. My family began to fracture in real time. Mother stopped appearing at hearings, sending only her attorney. Jessica hired separate legal counsel from our parents. Their once unified front collapsed under the weight of their own lies. Michael delivered the news with quiet satisfaction. "The judge's preliminary ruling favors your ownership claim. They have no legal standing. The house is yours." That afternoon, their attorney approached with a settlement offer, the return of the deed if I dropped all claims. "Not enough," Michael said at my direction. "Full ownership, restoration, and all legal fees paid by them." I was washing the hospital antiseptic from my hands that evening when my phone buzzed. Jessica's name appeared on the screen, followed by a message that made me freeze. "We need to talk. Alone." I stared at those words, water still running over my fingers. After everything, the lies, the manipulation, the public humiliation, she wanted to meet. The old Emily might have rushed to respond, eager to fix things. The new Emily turned off the faucet, dried her hands carefully, and considered her reply with the same calm precision she gave her most critical patients. On Wednesday morning next week, the pounding at my door echoed through my apartment like thunder. I froze, coffee mug halfway to my lips, recognizing the distinctive rhythm. 3 sharp raps followed by a pause, then 2 more. Mom's signature knock. "Emmy, open up, we need to talk." Her voice carried through the door loud enough for the entire floor to hear. I set my mug down carefully, breathing deeply the way Dr. Wilson taught me during our counseling sessions. The clock read 7:14 a.m. Of course they'd come early, catching me before my shift. When I opened the door, they surged forward like floodwaters. Mom's eyes were rimmed, red mascara smudged beneath them. Jessica stood slightly behind, one hand protectively cradling her belly, which seemed to have doubled in size since I last saw her. Dad hovered at the edges, his face a mask of practiced concern. "The neighbors are watching," I said quietly, stepping back. "Let them." Mom wailed, but she moved inside anyway. Everyone should see what you're doing to this family. Jessica sniffled dramatically, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The baby kicked all night. The stress is affecting her. Dad closed the door behind them, then leaned close. This will destroy your mother's health, he whispered, threat wrapped in concern. Her blood pressure is through the roof. They positioned themselves strategically around my small living room. Mom near the window where morning light caught her tears. Jessica on my sofa, hand still on her belly. Dad standing with arms crossed. A coordinated assault. Your father might lose his job over this, Mom announced, voice trembling. His boss is friends with our attorney. Jessica nodded vigorously. And everyone at the hospital is talking. Dr. Renner told me nurses are choosing sides. If you drag this through court, nobody wins, Dad added. Legal fees will bankrupt all of us. I listened to each threat, noting the practiced delivery, the way their eyes flicked to gauge my reaction. For 11 years, I'd watched patients' vital signs, learning to spot the moment when panic turns to acceptance. I recognized the same patterns in my family now, the escalating desperation, the synchronized approach. Would you like some coffee? I asked calmly. My response threw them. They exchanged glances, momentarily unbalanced by my composure. We didn't come for coffee, Jessica snapped. I know why you came. I moved to the small desk in the corner where a manila folder sat precisely centered on the polished surface. But before you say another word, you should know what I have. The folder landed on my coffee table with a satisfying thud. Mom flinched. I opened it slowly, removing the contents with deliberate precision and arranging each document in a neat, measured row. This is the original warranty deed with my signature, I said, tapping the first paper. And this is the quitclaim deed with what appears to be my signature, except I never signed it. Mom opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. The gesture silenced her instantly, a power I hadn't realized I possessed until now. This report, I continued, placing another page down, is from a certified handwriting analyst confirming the forgery. And these are my bank statements showing every mortgage payment I've made since closing 550 payments. With each new piece of evidence, the color drained further from Mom's face. Jessica shifted uneasily on the sofa, her eyes darting between the papers and the door. County records prove there was never any foreclosure on the family home. The page landed with a crisp sound. And this statement from Jessica's friend admits she fraudulently notarized the document. Dad sank slowly into the armchair, his hands trembling. Finally, I said, we have Tom's sworn affidavit describing in detail how this plan was developed, dates of meetings, who said what, everything. Jessica's phone buzzed. She fumbled for it, her face paling as she read the message. The prosecutor has copies of everything, I said quietly. Silence filled the room, dense, suffocating. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the dust motes that drifted between us. Emmy, you have to understand. Mom began, her voice soft, honeyed. We were only trying to... You didn't just steal my house. I cut in, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. You stole my trust. Jessica's phone buzzed again. Her fingers shook as she read. Tom says the police just left. They're asking about the notary. Her voice cracked with panic. He's leaving me. He says he can't trust me. Mom's composure finally cracked. What have you done? She demanded, her sweetness gone. Dad stared at the documents, realization dawning in his eyes. Criminal charges, he whispered. Jessica's voice rose shrill and desperate. Tom says they mentioned fraud and possible jail time, Mom. You said this would be okay. Mom's voice trembled now, stripped of all authority. You've always been so independent, Emmy. She reached for my hand. Jessica needs what Jessica needs isn't mine to give anymore, I said, pulling away. I walked to my bedroom and returned with a single document bearing the court's official seal. This is a settlement agreement signed today. If you accept it, we proceed no further with criminal charges. You wouldn't send your own mother to jail, Mom said, but the certainty in her tone was gone. I didn't want to, I answered honestly. That's why I'm offering this alternative. Dad's voice wavered as he read aloud the settlement terms. Full restoration of property ownership to Emily Sullivan. Payment of all legal fees. 90-day no-contact provision. His voice broke. Jessica's face crumpled. What about the baby? Where will we live? The same place you lived before you tried to steal my house. I replied, offering her a pen. One by one they signed. Dad first, then Jessica. Finally, Mom her signature. A sharp, angry scrawl. The pen scratched against the paper, marking the end of something I can't quite name. When they left, the apartment felt suddenly vast. I sank onto the sofa, and only then did my hands begin to tremble, delayed adrenaline coursing through me. My phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. Congratulations, he said after I told him the news. The house is officially yours again. I stared at the signed settlement on my coffee table. Then why don't I feel like celebrating? A gentle knock at my door revealed Sarah, a bottle of wine in one hand, 2 glasses in the other. Because winning doesn't heal betrayal, she said softly, stepping inside. I moved to the window, looking out at the city stretching before me. Buildings gleamed in the morning sun, streets filling with people starting their day, each carrying their own private battles. I need to decide what happens next. I whispered more to myself than to Sarah. The settlement papers sat on my coffee table, secured but offering no peace. In the reflection of the window, I saw not just myself, but the shadow of the woman I was becoming, stronger certainly, but carrying a wound that victory alone could not heal. The for sale sign swung gently in the breeze as I walked the realtor through the property one final time. Sunlight streamed through freshly cleaned windows, illuminating hardwood floors that held no fond memories for me. I never intended to live here, I explained to Marjorie, the silver-haired realtor who had handled everything with remarkable efficiency. The closing price of $395,000 would clear the mortgage and fully recover my savings. Her eyes crinkled with understanding. Sometimes the best investment is in your own peace of mind. 3 months after the legal battle ended, I signed the papers for a charming $310,000 cottage in Greeley. The little 2-bedroom with its wraparound porch and towering maple trees spoke to me in ways the larger house never had. As I pressed pen to paper, there was no family hovering, no hidden agenda, just my steady hand claiming what was rightfully mine. "Congratulations, Miss Sullivan," the attorney said, sliding the final mortgage document across the table. My voice didn't waver when I replied, "Thank you." 2 weeks later, laughter filled my new living room as Sarah raised her glass. To Emily, who taught us all what courage looks like. My small housewarming gathering bore no resemblance to that fateful night at Jessica's. Dr. Wilson occupied my reading chair, his booming laugh punctuating Michael's animated story about courthouse antics. My hospital colleagues clustered around the kitchen island I'd chosen myself, helping themselves to dishes they'd brought to celebrate my fresh start. To chosen family, I said, raising my own glass, "Who stand by you in truth?" Golden afternoon light filtered through the windows I'd selected, warming the walls painted in colors I loved. Every detail of the house reflected choices made by me, and for me alone, no compromise, no sacrifice, just authenticity. Sarah helped me hang a watercolor in the hallway, while Michael pretended to measure with exaggerated precision. 2 millimeters higher on the left, he declared with a grin. "In your dreams," Sarah shot back, adjusting it perfectly on the first try. Dr. Wilson approached with a carefully wrapped package. "A retirement gift came early," he said, placing it in my hands. Inside lay an antique brass nursing lamp, its patina rich with stories of generations of caregivers. "For your study," he added. A reminder that healing others begins with healing yourself. The lamp, gleaming softly in the evening light, felt like a balm against the scars of betrayal, a symbol of who I had always been beneath the hurt. Later that night, Amanda, our newest ICU nurse, helped gather empty plates. Her shoulders hunched slightly as she confided almost apologetically that her parents were disappointed in her career choice. They wanted law school, she murmured. Sometimes I wonder if I'm letting them down. I recognized that weight, the quiet ache of disapproval. Your worth isn't measured by their approval. I told her, my words drawn from a deep, hard-earned place. Trust what calls to you. Her eyes widened. I never thought of it that way. After everyone left, I carried a tray of seedlings to my backyard garden. The setting sun painted the horizon in amber and gold as I knelt in the soft earth, digging small homes for perennials that would return year after year. My hands moved methodically, placing roots into fertile soil. When the mail arrived, I noticed Jessica's handwriting on a small envelope. Inside were photos of my niece, pink-cheeked, bright-eyed, impossibly innocent. "Hello, little one," I whispered, feeling no resentment toward this blameless new life. The next morning, I hung a small embroidered sign in the entryway. "Family is earned, not given." Beside it, a wall of photographs was slowly growing. Sarah laughing at the lake, Michael triumphant after winning my case, the hospital team smiling at last year's Christmas party. Among them hung an empty frame with a note attached, "For whatever comes next." Standing in the doorway of my home, I was silhouetted against the warm light within. For the first time in years, my shoulders carried no burden but their own. My lips formed words meant only for myself and for these welcoming walls. Finally, truly mine.